Hey guys, Jen Pastiloff here. Today's video is on getting in your own way. Do you ever get in your own way? I get in my own way all the time. Not just because I'm a slob and a klutz, which I am. I'm always like tripping over myself and bumping into things. I'm such a dork. But I get in my own way up here. I'm always overthinking and self-sabotaging and, getting in my own way. So I posted yesterday on Facebook, do you get in your own way? And people were just like responding, leaving the greatest comments. And we're all so similar, right? People were putting things like, I don't create boundaries. I get myself sick. I self-sabotage. I get scared. I let my past behaviors influence me now. Insecurities, fear, you name it. I love the community that we've created on my Facebook page because everyone's so engaged. And I think at the end of the day, it makes us feel so much more human, Post your thoughts below. Do you get in your own way? How? Are you ready to stop? Share this video. This is how we keep this community going, right? By engaging, by sharing, by commenting. Yesterday, in my class at Yogis Anonymous, please take it, yogisanonymous.com, Jen P 10 free days. 10 free days. The Journey by Mary Oliver. I'm only going to read the end of it. It reminded me of this idea of self-sabotage. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save. Isn't it the truth? We can only save our own lives! So why do we keep getting in our own way? What a conundrum! What a conundrum!
Hello, my name is Lydia Yuknovich, and you're listening to On the Block Radio.
Born into the cage, but what I grew up hating, I keep on recreating. Please help me. Something's gotta change. There was something that you said. Happy times ahead. Happy times ahead. Kind of blur, like the picture's going to shatter. Can you recognize the features of a bone upsetter? All the people, all the places in my head, they're running around. I'm trying to make connections, but the circuits are down. Look at me, look at me, look what I can do. I'm amazing. I'm lit up from without, and I'm lit up from within. Got light in every layer of my illuminated skin. I'm swallowing a light bulb, transform into the sun. I can jump into the darkness, I can shine on anyone. Look at me, look at me. Can you see what I can do? 'Cause I'm amazing. Look at me, look at me, look at me. Can you see what I can do? 'Cause I'm amazing. reaching out my hand. I'm going underwater. Sunlight filtered into shafts. I'm going underwater with the human race. Going underwater down. Underwater down. Underwater. Trying to put it together in my head. Feeling the weight of what you said. The weight of what you said. Happy times ahead. Happy times ahead. Happy times Look at me, look at me, look what I can do. 'Cause I'm amazing. Look at me, look at me, look at me, look what I can do. 'Cause I'm amazing. 'Cause I can, and I will. It's moving in me. The spirit is free. Hey, I
Okay, welcome to the program, folks. Your host, Andy Gurvich here. Excited this week. I feel like I always say that in the beginning, but I'm fucking excited every week. I think this show is killing it. Has very little to do with me. I think we have great guests that have, for some reason, been saying yes to the show. We got a great team making the show, and I just get to sit down every week and talk to folks that are either for years and years and years have been absolute heroes and idols of mine in terms of the work, the meaningful, transformative work they're doing in the world, or up-and-coming folks who I think are just going to kick the world in the teeth and help turn this thing around for us. Whether we have, Howard Bloom coming up, who, like I said, by many is considered the next in a line of thinkers that include Stephen Hawking and Buckminster Fuller and Einstein and Darwin, or Douglas Rushkoff, who's called, by MIT one of the top 10 modern thinkers of our time that whose ideas are going to help shape the world and are shaping the world that we live in and helping us understand the world that we live in, to folks like Rios de la Luz, right, who is just an amazing Chicana author filled with fire and passion and words, and who's coming to change the world and put her stamp and her words and her voice as a conduit for her experience out there for you to connect with. And so I think the show is fulfilling its vision, and I just couldn't be more pleased with the work we get to do every week. And sharing it with you, with this wonderful and attentive audience, is something that is also a real privilege. This week, Jen Pastiloff, beauty hunter, the founder of The Manifestation, writer and a yoga teacher living with her husband in Los Angeles, frequent co-workshop facilitator with the wonderful Lydia Yuknovich. Jen Pastiloff came across my radar screen because of the wonderful work of show assistant producer and my partner in crime, Celeste Gurvich. Attended a couple of these workshops with Jen and Lydia, and just raving about her and the work that she does, the body positive yoga movement, similar to the work being done by folks like Kimberly Dark, but a little bit different, right? Jen's focus is her own, and it's a unique thing, and we'll get into it in the interview. What fascinates me about Jen is several things. Is watching her speak about and deal with and overcome and not let slow her down her hearing loss, and how she navigates the world, and how that has created challenges and opportunities for transformation for her. And then hearing how she was a struggling actress and a waitress in Los Angeles for well over a decade, and really coming to that point of wondering, is this what my life is? Is this what it's going to be? This is the kind of work that I did, and many of you did and still do. And I'm a person who doesn't believe that if you have a job waiting tables or serving people for all of your life, that this is a failure. I think that I call the people that pump gas for me and serve me food sir and miss, and try to show them respect. Maybe not miss, it's a little weird, but try to show respect to people that serve me things. I don't look down on folks that help me in my life. Quite the contrary. I think this is a noble thing to do. But for her, she had other aspirations besides just waiting tables. And so, finding herself stuck in that just doing what I have to do to survive kind of mode, she took a step out into her possibility, and it exploded. And now she runs this wonderful website, Manifestation. She teaches all over the world. She's with Cheryl Strayed and Oprah's Super Soul Sunday outfit. She's doing it all, and it was because she had the courage to not let her fear hold her back, and to try to step into her full self and her full possibilities. And she does this now for women and men, and non-women and men. It's mostly women who come to her events, but not only. There's folks across the spectrum who do. And folks that have been bound up in their limitations, who have let the labels and the limitations that the world has put on us define us, instead of embracing and expanding that which we are and that which we can do. So Jen is just a force of power and positive energy and transformation. She's a new mother, and we get into that a little bit, especially in the beginning. It's pretty funny. And we just adored having her on the show. She's doing fantastic work. And get over to the Manifestation and read some of the work that they have on there, because you want to talk about transformation, people writing about their bodies and about illness and about sexuality and about gender and about fear and death and loss, and but all through this lens of manifesting our true selves, our highest potential. We aren't our bodies. We aren't our limitations, but that is so much a part of what we are. I should say we aren't just those things. But as people like Lydia Yuknovich, who we talk about a lot on this show, and others point out, our body story is a story that is often neglected, and it is one that we have been trained to ignore and not trust. And so when folks like Jen, folks like Lydia, folks like Kimberly Dark and others step forward and not only give us permission, but start giving us some templates for how to step into fully inhabiting. I'm thinking of Eve Ensler and her wonderful work and her TED Talk, Suddenly My Body. Step into our body story and start to live through it authentically and powerfully, then watch out, because then that world of the ideas, the world of the sublime, suddenly gets rooted in earth and starts to explode in ways that you never imagined. And Jen is a walking, living, breathing example of that. Super happy to have her on the show. As I said, Kelly Carlin, Howard Bloom, and some other surprises coming for you as we zero in on closing our first year out here at On the Block Radio. Thank you so much for being with us, folks. We love you. All right, Jen Pastiloff coming next, and we will see you on the other side.
Welcome to On the Block with Andrew Gurvich, a podcast about authentic people doing beautiful things. Enjoy the show.
Folks, welcome to the program. This is your host, Andy Gurvich, and we are happy to have our guest this week. Jen Pastiloff, Beauty Hunter, is the founder of the Manifestation website. She is a writer and yoga teacher living with her husband in Los Angeles and new baby. When she's not on an airplane, she's in Los Angeles when she's not on an airplane. She travels the world with her unique workshop, the Manifestation Workshop on Being Human, a hybrid of yoga, writing, sharing out loud, and occasional dance party. It's an experience that has been described as distinctly not woo-woo. I'm going to ask you about that in a minute. Described as unpredictable, heart-mending, and sometimes messy, just like life. Jen says you don't have to be a good yogi or a writer, just a human being with a body. She has been featured on Good Morning America, New York Magazine, CBS News, and more for her unique style of teaching. She's developed a massive and loyal following from her personal essays and videos that we're going to talk about as well. She studied poetry and writing at NYU and Bucknell University and is currently finishing her first book, Beauty Hunting. Jen, welcome to the show.
Hi.
What's that crazy noise in the background?
Oh, shoot, you can hear that. Okay.
Yeah.
That was pumping.
Oh, excellent. Well, let's start there. You're a new mother. Congratulations.
So funny. I didn't think you'd be able to hear that.
You have a brand new baby boy, is that correct?
I do, yeah. Charlie.
What's his name?
Charlie.
Charlie
Mel Taleghany, yeah. And he's my mom's here helping, so she gave him a bottle of fed pumped milk.
Oh, that's excellent.
That so funny. I don't know why I thought you wouldn't be able to hear that.
That's absolutely fine. I told you before we started that we're family friendly, so that's not a problem at all. Mm-hmm. We don't shame mothers on this show, so that's absolutely fine. I was just interested in what it was. So how's he doing? Let's start there. How's he?
He's doing great. He's amazing. I of course feel like I have no idea what I'm doing, but he's doing great. He's he can be pretty fussy sometimes, but
how old is he?
So he's just over 4 weeks. He's like 4 weeks and a couple of days. Wow. But I've never really spent much time around newborns, so I actually have no idea. You know what I mean? Like, it's it's amazing. I was just so clueless. So
I've seen some wonderful videos you've posted online of you had someone come and bring play the bowls. I guess I'm not explaining it right, but like meditation.
Yeah, my friend is there's something called a sound therapist. And, so she does, when I do my retreats, often she comes and does sound bath concerts for us. And so when I was pregnant and when I was in labor, she did it. She puts the bowls all over your body and plays ancient Tibetan singing bowls. And she did it when I was in labor, which was amazing. And then she came over when he was just like a week old, maybe. And yeah, the babies love it.
I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about that. Before I ask you about what it's like being a new mom, maybe just a couple of questions about what it was like being pregnant, because your work focuses so much on going around the world and helping women connect and many times reconnect with their bodies. I wonder how your relationship to your own body changed through your pregnancy.
In the best possible way. I mean, and I really put it off for so long. I didn't think that I was going to do it, or I wanted to, but there was, a small part of me that wasn't sure. So I never said never, but I definitely wasn't, like, that's all I want in life, or I can't wait, or trying, or anything. So
Sure.
Anyway, I had a lot of fear around it and a lot of ambivalence, and had I known how good I would feel, I would have done it sooner. It was like the best possible time of my life, and it sounds almost surreal to say. It just made everything better, and I was very lucky, with my pregnancy. I never was sick, and I felt great, and I suffered from depression, and I didn't have any of that, and I felt grounded, and any body issues I had went away. I
Really?
Loved getting bigger. Yeah, I loved it. I loved getting bigger. I loved eating whatever I wanted, and I was really present. I wasn't drinking wine that I normally drink a lot, and so I don't know. It was great, and it just made my workshops a lot better. And I found, at least in my experience, people were really nice to me when I was pregnant, and I knew that wouldn't last forever. So I milked it,
I think it's an important thing. I mean, when you're again, as we were just saying, when so much of your work is talking to women and to girls about languaging their relationship to their body and inhabiting their relationship to their own body. So for you to kind of model that through a pregnancy, I think was really profound for a lot of people to see. Because I know,
Thanks.
I know my wife and a lot
Thank
of
you.
folks that I know spoke to that regularly, and even people that have already had children or haven't had children yet were very inspired in watching that entire process and how you let people in.
Yeah, and I was, like I said, I was scared. I mean, I was severely anorexic for a long time, and I dealt with a lot of stuff with the body, and I think I had a lot of hesitancy about and fear around, what's going to happen and the unknown and, like, self-loathing and all that, and it was not that way at all for me. I mean, I can only speak to my own experience, but it felt miraculous, and it was it's just so wild what our bodies can do. And when I started to shift to what it looks like, from what it looks like to what it can do, and to how incredible it was humbling.
There's two questions that just popped up in my head based on what you just said, but I'll ask you them in order since we're speaking about your pregnancy. You've spoken openly and done a lot of videos and done a lot of work regarding your ectopic pregnancy. And I was wondering, Celeste and I were talking about this in your pregnancy with Charlie. How did you deal with the added fear that comes from trying again after that particular kind of trauma?
Yeah, well, like I said, it wasn't trying. This is what happened. It was a couple years ago, and I started feeling pressure from society. Maybe some of it was imagined, but, you should have a baby. You should start trying now. You're getting older.
Biological clock is ticking, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't think I wanted it, but I was like, I'm the worst at making decisions and trusting myself. And so I was like, oh, God, I don't know. And a lot of my friends were like, it takes so long. You better start trying now. So I thought, well, I'm not sure, but let's start trying because it's going to take forever and it probably won't happen. And we tried once, and I got pregnant. And I was devastated. I was not ready. I didn't think I wanted it. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And then it was ectopic, so it was kind of confusing,
Oh, wow.
Because there was, like, a little bit of relief.
And then it becomes like a hall of mirrors because I wonder if there was then guilt associated with that relief.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
But then I realized, like, especially because I talk about, I definitely wasn't like, I wish I hope that something goes wrong with this, but I was I was not excited, I was like weeping. But it's so much about what I teach when I talk about manifesting. I was like, I'm not powerful enough to, like, have my thoughts do anything, in terms of, so I let go of any guilt around that. But I thought after that topic, this, lightning bolt of clarity would come to me, like, I want a baby or I don't. And it didn't. and a year passed, and then another year, and then I started to panic a little because I thought, oh my God, I'm 40, and I knew my husband wanted kids, but I'm 40, and I talk about this a lot, but Wayne Dyer, who was one of my great teachers and mentors.
I was going to ask you about him later, so that's great, yeah.
Yeah, about a year before he died, a year after the topic, I saw him, and he asked me if I had kids, and I said no. And I said I had an ectopic, and I don't know if I will. And he goes, it's not up to you anyway. And at the time, I kind of rolled my eyes. It's such a Wayne
thing to say, yeah.
But then I thought about it, and it's kind of true, and I kept thinking about it. And so in September, my husband and I were talking, and I was like, babe, we have to really figure this out. What are we going to do? Do you want to? And I go, how about this? Let's just let it be. Let's just let it be. Let's just not try. Let's just let it be. Mm-hmm. And I said that, and about 5 minutes later, I was pregnant, literally.
Wow.
And it was a completely different experience because when I first found out, I wasn't jumping for joy, but I was really calm and grounded, and I was like, wow, this is different because last time I was weeping, and then of course I was scared because of the ectopic things, and I just I really gave over to the idea of trust. Okay, you know what? I said, let it be, and here it is. So I'm really going to embrace that. And I don't normally buy into the idea of, everything happens for a reason. I actually think that's a bunch of bullshit. But with this case scenario, I was like, all right, it's meant to be. And I don't normally talk like that, but I thought this is meant to be. And, it was so scary after the ectopic. I went to the doctor. And a couple of years ago, I remember going and... It was terrifying. She says, okay, I see this block dot here. It's in the wrong space. And so it's stuck in your tube. And so the first time we went, then we heard his heartbeat. And then I started falling in love with, then I was like, oh my God, I want this more than anything. And,
wow.
And then when I started loving being pregnant, especially once you start showing, it's like, how could I'm so glad I did this. I can't believe I almost didn't do it,
I mean, I can't. Go ahead.
No, as I say, I don't take for granted how, sometimes, especially being a public figure, not that I'm Oprah or anything, but to a degree, no matter what you say, you're going to piss someone off.
Of course.
Or rub someone the wrong way. But I don't take for granted how easy it came for me, getting pregnant.
I remember some of your Facebook posts and some of your social media posts during that time, and you were always very sensitive to women who had either lost children or don't have children or didn't want children, and it was like, look, these posts aren't intended to rub anything in or shame anybody. It's just a mother celebrating the changes in her body in this process. Yeah,
people get upset. They're like, oh, it must be nice. I mean, some of us have been doing IV, and everyone's coming from their own place of pain or whatever's happened to them or their experiences. But also I'm old enough, you know what I mean? I think it's different when you go through experience in your 20s or even 30. By now, I'm old enough, and through all the work I've done, that I try my best. Please, some days I suck at it, but to be as mindful as I can. And I was on the other side. I mean, I truly did not think, in a million years that I was going to have a kid. There's a tiny, 1% chance. So I was really, it doesn't make you a real woman. And
right, all of that.
You can know love despite not having a child. I was really adamant in these beliefs I had, and had a deep knowing with all of that. But here I am.
Here you are. There's something in this story that connects with me on a profound level, and it's this: my own mother. So many of my own problems in my own life have come from my non-existent relationship with my own mother, and there's so many things that contributed to that, but. The show isn't about me, it's about your story, but just quickly to tell you this one thing. She had 5 miscarriages before she had me.
Wow.
And it created, I think, this and some other kinds of stuff from her own past and abuse and things from her own childhood and her tumultuous relationship with my father, who was violent and things. But more than anything, I think this shut something down in her and made it to where she was afraid. Even after I was born, she was so afraid of what had happened that she couldn't bond with me. And so she remained so distant from me for her entire life.
Oh my God, that breaks my heart.
And I think this had a lot to do with it, because she would tell me this in a really cruel way. I mean, I would be a little kid. I was 5, 6 years old. And she would say, I was a good kid at the time. And she would say, I had 5 miscarriages before I had you. God was trying to tell me something and I should have listened.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, she would say things like this. And again, at the time, I felt the kind of, even though I didn't know what a miscarriage was, I didn't really understand the full weight of what she was saying, but I got the emotion of it. And it created this wedge between us. And one of the things it manifested in me was an eating disorder. And when I was about 11, they sent me to, they didn't want to address anything in the family, anything relationally, anything emotionally, but they sent me away to a place basically that was, like an inpatient facility that was just going to treat the eating disorder, and it was a place that.
So were you binging, or were you starving yourself, or how was it?
I was binging. I was probably 50 pounds overweight, and the facility was actually started by Richard Carpenter.
By who?
By Richard Carpenter, Karen Carpenter's brother. Her famous story and her eating disorder struggles, and after she passed away, he started this facility in Los Angeles that helped young people with eating disorders. And it was an unsuccessful program for me because none of the abuse and weird kind of relational stuff in my family was being addressed. It was just, let's deal with these eating patterns. But it was, you know what I mean? There was no other support. As soon as I went home, it all fell to shit again, obviously. But what's interesting to me is the connection between those two things, right? Between that breaking of that familial bond and of that nurturing quality that any person needs early in life, and then that in my case that manifested in a fracture in my own relationship to my own body. And so I wonder how common that is. And I don't, you spoke a little bit ago about your own anorexia, and I'm not sure what. I guess I'm interested in what led you out of it more than what led you into it.
What made me what?
What led you out of that? You said you had battles with anorexia.
Well, you mean like quote unquote healed?
Right, yeah. Quote unquote.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not actively dealing with it, but I think with any kind of things like that, it's always.
It's in remission. That's how I explain it.
Yeah, you're never 100% healed. It's like an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I never dealt with it ever, and that was a big mistake. So, and I basically had a breakdown when I was maybe 10 years ago now. I was waitressing at the same restaurant for, over a decade, and I finally went on antidepressants, and that was the thing. But I still wasn't addressing the root of the problem or talking it out or dealing with it. But antidepressants really helped me and helped me crawl out of a pit. And I'd struggled with depression since childhood, so truthfully, I should have been on them way earlier. And that, if I look back, that's the one thing I wish I had done. Was go on them earlier, and they helped me, and then once I was able to crawl out of that pit, then I was able to take action and get out of the restaurant, and I started teaching yoga, and my life started to shift, and I got into a healthy relationship. But it was the medication, and then I just started doing a lot of work on myself and started doing these workshops and and dealing with all these women and writing really honestly about it, and then starting to hold myself accountable, because I thought I can't be doing my best to help people to like themselves more if I hate myself or I'm starving myself or I'm all
That's
the
so
other
true.
crap.
And there's such stigmas attached in this culture with all of us, but with women especially, not only with body image and weight and eating, but also with mental illness. And so to try to overcome both of those seems like a mountain to have done.
Yeah, and but like I said with the pregnancy, it definitely helped because it's such an interesting. It's so funny too because the bigger you get when you're pregnant, people just keep saying how amazing you look and how great, and it's hilarious. You just keep getting fatter, and people say you just look great, and they love it, and you feel beautiful. Well, I did.
And it shows what bullshit the paradigm is. That's amazing.
It really.
But
it's still there. I mean, it's a battle. I mean, even right now, my stomach went down a lot. I'm like, but I'm not starving myself or taking up, incessant mental energy thinking about anything. But it's it's always on the peripheries.
How did you come to the study and practice and eventual teaching of yoga? I have a few questions for you about that, and then after this, we'll go to our break.
I did. I started, years ago, and I really loved it. And it was helping me. I used to be, the anorexia, but I was also a compulsive exerciser. Like an exercise bulimic. Like I literally worked out 5 hours a day.
Yeah, I've read some stuff that you've written about this.
It was just such a waste. I think about like all the books I could have written, and things I could have done, and I would like base plans. Like I literally did not want to go back to New York because I wouldn't be able to exercise outside as much. I mean, ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah, and like not make plans with people, and because I wouldn't be able to exercise for 5 hours. So yoga started helping me moderate a little, and also all the injuries I had from all that exercise, and then it was helping with depression. And so when I had that breakdown, I didn't know what I was going to do. I had kind of half-heartedly been an actress, and I did go to NYU, but I left after I had 1 year left. I had like a few credits left, and I left to take a semester off, and I never went back. And I was so anorexic and depressed, and I ended up working at the restaurant, and I just woke up one day, and 13 years had passed. So here I am, college degree, didn't feel like I could do anything, felt like I was old, which is laughable now.
Right.
At the time, and I felt so stuck, like I wanted to die. And my friends thought I should teach yoga, and it sounded terrible and boring to me because I took yoga and I liked it, but teaching to me just seemed like, like telling someone to lift their leg and, crescent lunge.
Right,
it just was not inspiring and boring. But I went on the meds, and all of a sudden I thought, why don't, I have nothing to lose. I'll take a teacher training and I'll see. And that was the first time I noticed a shift, because I saw like a glimmer of possibility where before it was just, black. So I took the teacher training, but if I'm really honest, I still didn't want to be a yoga teacher. In fact, I came out of it and I was like, wow, I really don't want to do this. But my mom built me a website, and I got a client, and then I subbed a yoga class, and I was really good at it. So I thought, wait a minute. Yeah. And what I realized now all these years later, or actually I realized really quickly, it wasn't that I was it had anything to do with yoga. I just think I'm a good teacher, I think. And I always, even as a child at college, I thought I was going to be in academia. I always thought I'd be a teacher. So I thought, I'm a good teacher. So actually I have nothing to do with yoga.
Fascinating.
And so I pretty immediately, even in my teaching, it was always a hybrid. I read poems, and I kind of did my own thing, But even from the beginning, I knew it wasn't my, bliss, if you will. I don't know if that's,
No, that makes a lot of sense. I teach world religions at the college in mythology, and we spend a lot of time on this concept of yoga. Students, understandably, and I'm sure you encounter this a lot, when people, especially here in the West, when they hear yoga, they're familiar with someone putting on, some stretch pants and getting a mat and going and doing stretches, right? And it's a kind of exercise routine. What they're not familiar with is the larger concept of what the word means and what it is and kind of its original concept.
Yeah.
And so we talk about, we start with this conversation about what the word is, and this show is a show about transformation and creativity. And so yoga is such a great repository of that, because it's about yoking something, the word, right? And you know this, but this is just for the benefit of our listeners. It's to yoke something to something else. And
that's why.
Go ahead.
That's why I'm so confident in what I do, because I wasn't always, because of this hybrid of, especially now, years later, about how can I call this, a yoga workshop? Well, I damn well can't exact reason the definition that you're describing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I've read your work, you've talked about a couple of things. You said this is not about if you're an expert writer or an expert yogi. This is about connection. And then I've heard you say another thing about, and I want to ask you about this in a bit, but your motto, the I have done love, this is the absolute mantra of bhakti yoga. And so there's so much of the full tradition that's coming through in this work that seems really remarkable. And it goes so much beyond simply stretching or physical exercise. And it's really an entire program of personal transformation, of picking a person up and taking them deep, more into themselves, right? That seems to be what I see your work doing.
That's exactly what I attempt to do, or what I hope it does in some level, but for sure, 100%, yeah. And nowadays, even, it's, so many of the people that come to my workshops haven't even ever done yoga, and I love that.
Now, my wife, Celeste, attended a workshop, Yoga and Writing the Body with Lydia Yuknovich back in September, and I want to ask you a little bit about working with Lydia, but one of the moments that she shared with me involved, there was a woman there that had chronic and fairly extreme pain and medical issues, and I guess during one of the routines, I guess the dance karaoke section, Don't Stop Believin', she kind of broke down and was overwhelmed in this room full of women who were kind of, freeing themselves and dancing and going deeper into their bodies and letting go. Her physical limitations weren't allowing her to do that, and she got very overwhelmed. And it was, even when Celeste was recounting the story to me, it was very emotional even for me to hear it. And I'm wondering, has that kind of thing happened frequently? And how do you address that in a room full of 40 people when you're helping people transcend these barriers, and then there's one or two people that for one reason or another can't?
It doesn't happen, believe it or not, it doesn't happen that often because the people in the room generally feel so safe that, because so many of the times when that happens is because we're comparing ourselves to, like, I can't do this, that the person next to me is doing.
Right.
And generally the people in the room feel so safe that doesn't happen. But every once in a while it does. And then they, I always say, guys, write these two little letters on your hand, JB, just breathe. And they breathe through it, and they're okay. And usually if it's the person I'm thinking of, she went into the bathroom and maybe got sick to her stomach. And, a lot of it was like emotional stuff is like stuff coming up. And I also really encourage people to go to do what they can do. I mean, I have people come that have been in a wheelchair. I had someone come to my retreat a few weeks right before I gave birth, and she sat in the chair the whole time. And she asked me before she came, I think I might back out. I can't do any of this stuff. And I said, don't you dare. You come and you sit in a chair. She was like, really? And she loved it. And there was a couple moments where I could tell she was getting frustrated because, I don't know. I don't know if she was comparing herself and she was, or she was just frustrated that she couldn't do what everyone else was. But she got so much out of it.
Well, one of the things that Celeste said too, and again with this teaching of the I have done love and the connection, is that not only did the women in the room rally around this woman and kind of say, hey, you're not alone, hey, you're not isolated, but again, the focus can shift not from what all these things you can't do to what it is you can do, because anyone can engage in this process of transformation and go into themselves and go further, right, and experience something profound and transformative. And the limitation, what I love about the work you're doing, and also people like Kimberly Dark, is it's kind of moving away from a lot of this ableist language in things like yoga practice, and it's not focusing on being a perfect young healthy body. It's just focusing on having a body and building that relationship with that body, because all of us can take a step more towards health and transformation in ourselves.
Yeah, and something I realized, I don't know how many years ago, when I started getting really honest about my hearing loss, I had a lot of shame around it for a long time,
Yeah.
I think, when I was a kid, hearing aids were huge, and I was embarrassed, and I don't know, there's a stigma that doesn't exist with, like, wearing glasses, But when I started getting really honest about my hearing loss, and when I started teaching yoga, I realized, we're all up against something. Every single person is up against something. Everybody. For me, it's my hearing loss. For you, it's whatever everybody. And it's varying degrees, because that's what being a human is. Some people have way more pain in their life. Some people have had way more loss. Some people have, way shittier loss.
Sure.
But everyone's up against something. And so when you go into the room with that knowing and that compassion, and you just sit with the person, like, for example, so this person that was having a hard time, and you just sit with them and you're present to what they're going through, and you're reminding them to breathe, then it passes, and then they come back, they're back in their body, and because it's not about the physical part. That's the thing. I say, like, if you can't dance, just sing. If you can't, get up out of your chair, hang out in your chair, and throw your arms in the air. And if you can't throw your arms in the air, just breathe.
Yeah. Throw your eyes in the air then. I love that your description on the website about your classes, that they're not woo-woo, but they are unpredictable, heart-mending, and sometimes messy. I feel like that's a really accurate description.
I wrote that, and I actually need to change that bio when you read it. I was like, oh, it's old because my book isn't called Beauty Hunting anymore.
That's what I was I thought that was the case.
And I
actually,
haven't even written it yet.
Okay, yeah, I thought that was the case. I was going to actually ask you about that in the second segment.
God. Wow.
So sorry.
The woo-woo thing, I realized because it's so interesting because people always ask me, what's your demographic? And I truly don't have one. I swear to God, like my stuff, there's like teenagers to women in their late 60s or 70s. So I don't have a demographic, and I love that. But sometimes I worry, or I used to, where people would see the word manifest, or they think yoga, or they oh God, this is going to be woo-woo.
Here we go,
Not. It's not at all. I mean, there's an aspect of, to me, it's magic. It's magic what happens. So I do think it's magical, and it's mystical, and it's spiritual, but it's not woo-woo. It's not this like airy-fairy bullshit.
Yeah, it's not the
and I want people to know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, because, even working with Lydia, before, like, the first time we did it together, I was nervous because I thought, oh, God, because, Lydia is going to have all these amazing writers, and they're going to roll their eyes, and I'm going to have to really, like let them know, this is not, like, some woo bullshit.
You have to prove your non-woo credentials, yeah.
yeah. But it's what everyone says. They're wow. I mean, and then they're like, yeah, I mean, there is a little bit of kumbaya, Jen, but no, it's not woo.
You mentioned your hearing loss before, and so let me ask you this since you brought it up before we go to break. This will be the last question. You recently, I don't know if it was 6 months ago, maybe a little longer, talked about losing your hearing aids on social media, and it was a really kind of trying time for you, and it was amazing to watch. And there's, I guess, two questions to it. The money to get the replacements, these were very expensive hearing aids, was successfully raised on social media, and I wonder if you could talk about how that experience affected you, of how your community came together.
Wow. Well, yeah, so actually I've only had two pairs, and the first pair I had was the same thing. I wrote an article a bunch of years ago. I'm going to make up a number. Let's say 6, because I think it was right around when I got married. And basically, I was always so ashamed. And I joked, and I said, now, God, if I could afford hearing aids, please, I'd wear them. And somebody that took my yoga class, a lawyer, read it and called me. And I don't remember how she got my number. And she was like, what are you doing right now? And I said, walking down the street. She said, I want you to go to this address. A friend of mine's an audiologist. There's a pair of hearing aids for you, though.
Oh, my God.
And I went, yeah, and an old man had died, and his wife donated them. I think he wore them once or never or whatever. I gladly took them. And in the beginning, they worked a little for me, but they probably weren't the right ones for me, but I was so grateful. And those are the ones I lost. But by the time I lost them, they were barely working, and I never wore them. I think that's why I lost them. And so, anyway, but still, I needed a pair, and I didn't have $10,000 in the bank, because the pair I have now are about 9, but then with all the appointments and everything else, it's about 10 grand.
Yeah.
So yeah, somebody started a GoFundMe, and the money was raised instantaneously, and in like a week, maybe 10 grand, and it's humbling, and it's so moving to see, for all the shit that social media can be, there's that aspect to it, and I do really believe that a lot of it is because I try to live my life with that I have done love philosophy, and I watch it come back to me. I mean, I watched these people that I didn't know, or that had been just affected by things I've written, or my workshops, or whatever it was, donate money just because they love me and wanted me to hear. And
I remember watching that happen, and it was so amazing, and watching how moved you were. And in the second segment, I want to ask you, because you've had some success, and you have some, recently you were at the Super Soul Sunday with Cheryl Strait and Oprah. You have, some folks, Christy Turlington,
I mean,
Hugh Jackman.
I wasn't on stage, but
right. And so, there's, we all know what it's like to, the angel investor, the people with money or something. But when you see a $20 or a $10 donation come in towards that, I feel like that's so moving, right? To see people that have been moved by your work and don't have a lot of money, but they send $20, and it brought tears to my eyes. It It was really beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it really, and like some of these people I knew, people that I knew were broke or just really struggling.
Sure.
And I was able to accept it. I mean, sometimes, look, there's still parts of me that disconnect, when something really great happens or someone really does something that there's still a part of me that is like, it's really hard to, it's like hard to accept when someone looks us in the eyes and, tells us, says I love you or gives us a gift or whatever. But I for the most part, I was really able to accept it. I was like, wow, here is, this is, what I'm doing in the world. Look at how this is coming back to me. This is amazing.
That's remarkable.
And so I got this new pair, and I can't tell you how my life changed. I mean, it's amazing as humans what we can get used to, and we really can get used to anything. That's pretty scary. But I literally was not hearing. I mean, I probably was hearing like 30%, 20%. I don't know.
Oh, my God.
And now, when I have them in, I can hear, and it's like a whole nother, I mean, I cannot believe how long I was going with not hearing.
We might not have been able to even have this conversation on the phone, right, like this.
No, I mean, what's crazy, so I have my hearing aids in, and it's on Bluetooth, so like the phone is in on my lap, and so it's all, I can watch my iPad, it goes right into, like the phone will ring and only I hear it, it goes right into my ears.
That's
and
wild.
and I can control it all on my phone. But something scary happened, and I don't know why, and I Googled it, and I've heard it happen, but my hearing got worse when I was pregnant. So it was already bad, and it went from bad to terrible. And so...
That had to be scary.
What'd you say?
That had to be scary.
It was terrible, and so now I literally wear them 24 hours a day. I don't even know if you're meant to, but I can't hear my baby crying when I don't have them in. And I don't know if you can fathom how out of control that makes me feel, even though my husband, is right there with us, but it's the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah,
so
I can't fathom that. Wow.
Yeah, and of course I'm terrified now, from this death at this age, and I'm going to be and trying to really stay present and not get too paranoid about losing my hearing completely, but it's really scary. So I was so moved to tears about a month ago with these hearing aids. I had to give another shout out to people a year later because I don't know what I would do if I didn't have these. I truly cannot hear without them on.
Wow.
I mean, I can hear some little sound, but I don't know. It's like, Charlie Brown talk or someone underwater or nothing at all.
As bad as those other ones were, and this was my follow-up question to this, bless you, before we go to break. I know I've said we're going to break 17 times. I do this all the time, but this was the last part of it. How did you navigate the world in that, I mean, as bad as the other ones were, in that interim between when you lost them and then when you were able to raise the money and
I don't
then
know.
Get the new
mean, I think I was just missing so much. And also in my workshops, I think one of the reasons they're successful, one of the reasons, definitely not, the only one, is that I would scoot around on my butt. I was kind of famous for that. I scoot around on my butt and get down real low and pretty much sit on you when you're talking because I couldn't hear. But that creates this, intimacy and this, just gorgeous connection. And so and I lip read. And so that actually became a gift, my hearing loss, because I had to get really close to people and really all up in their shit.
Yeah. That's fascinating.
I still do that. Yeah, I still do that, though, even though, my hearing aids work.
You can hear them, right, because you've kind of developed that, right up in the space.
But I tell you, I shut down. A lot of times if I go out to dinner with people, I'm on my phone, and it's not because I'm an asshole. It's because I can't hear, and it's really depressing. And so it's I sit there, cannot hear anything anyone's saying, so I'll look down and, play on my phone or whatever. It's really depressing and really lonely and terrifying, and I isolate a lot before I got my new hearing aids, and I didn't realize as much. It's sort of I don't know if you've ever had this, if you struggle with depression, it's sort of when you don't feel depressed anymore and you realize how depressed you had been. Wow, I don't know how I was moving through the world with that much hearing loss and functioning, but I was missing a lot.
That's really remarkable. Celeste has talked a lot. She's studied sign, and she's talked about how the deaf people in deaf culture that she's known, how different how embodied they are in a lot of cases with each other, and how hearing people hug in that way where they kind of lean their top halves of their bodies into each other, and on hearing folks hug with their entire bodies. Now, this is not true of every single person, right? Of course, but she noticed just a difference in the embodied self, and a lot of that has to do with, at least in signing communities, how to speak to somebody else. You're using your entire body and not just your voice, and so it's the perceptual things are amazing. But if you're in a community of folks that are, the hearing community, and then, like you said, you're sitting there struggling, it becomes an isolating thing, especially if you've acclimated to it and aren't even really aware of what it is that's happening and all that you were missing. That's mind-blowing.
Yeah, and I don't, I don't have any deaf friends. I mean, now I have a ton of people I know that are profoundly hard of hearing, especially because I've written a lot about it, and so I've attracted a lot of people, and, social media, and it's gotten progressively worse. So it wasn't like I was raised in a deaf culture, and it's also like I'm not deaf. I'm just profoundly hard of hearing, and the irony is my job literally is listening. So I always chuckle about that, But and I don't know sign language, I've never, but I do think I probably should learn it. It's a bizarre thing, because I'm definitely not in like the world of deaf people or have deaf friends or so.
So can we go to break, and then I want to come back and just ask you a few questions about manifestation and the girl power videos and a few other things. Is that all right?
Sure.
All right, folks, you're listening to On the Block Radio. Our guest is Jen Pastiloff, and we'll be right back after these words.
Hi guys, happy Monday. Jen Pastiloff here. Feeling really good post-cleanse. Today's day. It ended yesterday, but I'm going to keep going just with the no coffee, no booze, no sugar until I feel like it, like having a drink. Then I will. But it's not going to be habitual with the coffee and the wine and the sugar. Anyway, have you ever had anything in your life where you thought it might kill you? You thought, I will not survive this pain, this hardship, this whatever it is going to kill me. And yet here you are. And I asked this question on my Facebook, this grief, whatever it is. I asked this question on my Facebook, and there's hundreds of comments. And I've asked it before, and I was just sitting here drinking my green tea, crying, reading them, and thinking how incredible people are. I mean, the things people wrote, losing my child, going through chemo, becoming paralyzed, losing my house, becoming homeless, things that are astounding. And yet here they are commenting on my Facebook page, alive. It's one of the reasons I do the work that I do, right, in my Manifestation on Being Human workshops, to remind us that we're not alone. So often we feel like we are. I do. I battle with that all the time, feeling so alone and afraid. And it's so nice to remember that you're not alone. And so anyway, I was reading all these comments and feeling really moved and wanting to like, but not wanting to like, because these are, terrible things people are writing, but wanting to like, yeah, you made it. You're here. You're alive. There you are on the other side of the computer. So a writer that I really love, Cheryl Strayed, most of you probably know her. She wrote a few books. Wild is probably her most famous book. She's also really well known for Dear Sugar, an advice column that was on the Rumpus. So she's just a wonderful human being, truly empathetic and lovely and kind and gracious. Anyway, so she, on her author page, she posted something, and it was so on with what I was going to make the video about. So I'm going to read you straight from what she wrote. And it says, in the 3 years and couple weeks that have passed since Wild was published, by the way, read it if you haven't, there hasn't been a single day that I've not received a message from someone saying they know the nature of my grief because they experienced it too. In fact, usually I get about 50 such messages each day. I get that too when I write about grief. Isn't that incredible? Messages in which the writer tells me that he or she has also lost and grieved someone deeply, and also that he or she feels terribly alone in that grief until they read my book. I felt like that when I read Wilde. Wilde told them that they were not alone. I hear over and over again. In addition to my profound gratitude in response to these emails and statements, I also have felt profound wonder. Why do we all feel so alone when in fact there's such common ground? Writing about my grief has given me access to the grief of others. My truth-telling was like a golden key that opened a secret door to a tribe I didn't know was there, but was. Yours is too. If you are suffering savagely, say so. Say, I do not know how to go on. Good people will take your hand and walk with you for a while. I know this because you took mine. Thank you. It really moved me. And I believe it's Ram Dass has a quote that says, we're all just walking each other home. Anyway, thank you, Cheryl Strayed, and thank you, all of you guys, for commenting, because it's important, this community, and what we've been able to do, what Cheryl does, what so many of us do, this connection when we can't actually be in person, and we do it with words or the internet or whatever it may be, but to remember that we're not alone. So remember that on this Monday. You're not. And here you are. So if you want to post below something that you thought you wouldn't survive, yet here you are, very much alive. I mean, you are if you're watching this video, right? So thanks, guys. I love you.
Thank you for listening to On the Block Radio. If you lived here, you'd be home already.
Welcome back, folks. This is On the Block Radio. I'm your host, Andy Gurvich. Our guest is Jen Pastiloff. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about the manifestation, the website, and then also, just the concept itself, because it's this concept of manifesting is also such a part of your workshops as well. So how did that develop, and what does that word mean to you in your work?
It developed because it's funny. My mom for years tried to get me to read Susie Orman and Wayne Dyer, and I would say I never read Susie Orman. But finally, I read Wayne Dyer, even though Mom. And then I started when I was waitressing. When I get off my shift, I started listening to him on my iPod, or maybe it was a tape player. No, iPod, and taking these walks, and I would listen to him, and I started to fall in love with him. And I would listen, and I memorized all of his talks, and not on purpose, but just listening to him over and over and over. And he would talk so much about manifesting, and I think it went into my DNA. And anyway, so like I was mentioned earlier, I went on the antidepressants, and I took a yoga teacher training, and I started teaching yoga, and then I led a retreat, or I didn't lead, I got hired to lead a retreat by these two life coaches just to do the yoga part. And they paid me a fair amount of money and flew me to Mexico, and this was amazing. I literally had been teaching yoga for about 4 minutes, and I was like, look at this, and I just had to do 1 hour a day of just teach yoga. They were doing their thing, and I thought, as I was there in Mexico, I was like, I could do this on my own. I could do this. And so I got a bug up my ass, and I thought, I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to lead my own retreat. And so I was a brand new yoga teacher, and I decided to, and I rented the place in Ojai where Lydia and I do our retreats, and I thought, all right, I'm going to, as long as I don't lose money, I don't care. And not only did I lose money, I made a little bit, and it was really a huge turning point for me. But anyway, I had no idea what I was doing. So, I was leading meditation, and I turned to face the valley, the Ojai Valley, and I said, all right, you guys, let's meditate on what we're manifesting. And I had no idea where that came from, and I had no idea what I was talking about. But then I realized I did, and I was like, wait, I've been, this stuff is in me now, and this is what I've done. Look at what I've done. I literally just started teaching yoga. There's 27 people here. I quit the restaurant. Look at what I've done. I manifested this.
Wow. And
I started to really look at my life, and I had just gotten married, and I was like, wait a minute. This stuff isn't bullshit. I really did the work and created this.
This happened, yeah.
So in the beginning, so the word manifest, and I just started to run with it, And so in the beginning, it was way different than it is now. It was really just more yoga, and there was I had sticky notes, and I had people write a word on it, and then it became bring your journal, and then it became way more writing. But in the beginning, I basically just regurgitated what Wayne Dyer said, and then eventually I started coming back to my writing, which is what I always did at NYU, and what I always wanted to do, and then I just got depressed and stuck, and I hadn't been, and I started really just telling the truth about things, like depression and eating disorder and hearing loss and the fact that I curse and drink too much wine, and then I started really finding my own voice even more, and not that I let go of what Wayne said, but you know how it is when you have a teacher, you use their words and what they've taught you, and then you develop your own voice, or as a writer.
That's the goal. So many people don't take that extra step, and they start with kind of mirroring the structures that they get from a teacher or from an influence, a wise person, and some of us don't ever take that second step and into our own voice and into our own self, and so it's really profound that you were able to do that.
I think you have to, because what happened was I started to disagree with some of this stuff, and I started to think, hey, I don't know, I started to pay attention to what was happening in my own life, and then basically I thought, I'm not a guru, and I'm not here really even teach anybody anything. I'm just going to talk about what I did and what works for me, and I'm just going to listen. And I am going to create a safe space. And the more I attempted to do that, and really, the more I saw these workshops, the more I kept manifesting in my own life. And it was just great, and I would just share about it. And in turn, I think that would inspire people. Not that I ever aim to be I am inspiring, but I do think when we see someone who felt like they wanted to die and were so stuck, get out of that, it can be inspiring, all right, maybe it's not bleak for me. And I'm not saying everyone who comes to my workshop is bleak or broken or depressed by any stretch of the imagination. But,
and they're not all, I read an interesting article because I was just going to say, the stuff that not everything about us is gendered. There's also a human story, and what I love about people like Wayne and others is they can speak to that humanness within us that has prior to when we differentiate into these various kinds of categories. But having said that, there's also something to be said, especially in a culture that has marginalized or silenced women's voices and women's bodies, to be able to tell that woman story is a very powerful thing as well. Not only your own, but then to enable women to do that. That's what's so powerful about
you know that my stuff isn't just for women. I mean, it is when I do it with Lydia.
Exactly, right.
And it happens to be quite often because that's the way it is. But I never. When I do workshops in various cities, I never say just women ever. It's just
And that was one of the profound things is although a lot of women come to your classes and are moved by your work, it's not a women's only movement, and men do come participate. And men were here in Portland. I know a few that were at the workshop and have studied your work close and afar and follow the manifestation. And this is not about a women's movement, although it speaks profoundly to women, this concept of manifestation.
Yeah, no, and with Lydia particularly, we chose that. We chose, especially the one in Ojai. It was a choice, and we've talked about even in Portland. We're like, yeah, we could do this. And I would be really curious. I think, and it might change. It definitely would change things, but I don't know. I've led these beautiful workshops with men in the room that were so open and vulnerable and absolutely incredible.
That is profound.
And I wouldn't have had it any other way.
That's fantastic.
And I think it's really important, Andy, because so often, we have these stereotypes of men that they're shut down and they're assholes, whatever.
Right.
And I find these men come to my workshop and it's the opposite, and it's a reminder of, wow.
One of the things I found in my study
of
and one of the things I've seen in my own life and in my own work is that within patriarchal structures, not only are women's bodies and behaviors policed, but men will police other men in ways that really try to separate us from our own emotions, right? And that can be devastating. Not all men, but just those that seek to kind of reinforce that status quo. And so we have to intentionally seek out these kind of safe and liberated spaces to be able to get in touch with our own emotions and bodies as well, because the rituals that exist in this culture for male bonding, most of them have to do with excess. It's strip clubs, it's drinking, it's football, right? You know what I mean? It's things that emphasize a certain kind of masculinity and really de-emphasize others. And so there needs to be just as much of intentionality, I think, there as anywhere else.
Yeah.
And so I love that men are coming to your work. Manifestation, the website is, what are the numbers on that? It's 11 million?
Oh God, I don't know. I mean, no. Well, it goes up and down. Like,
sure.
I think, it's like some days you look at your website and you're like, I've had 20,000 hits in an hour, and then you're looking, you're like, I've had 300 and
right.
But there have been times when it's just like it's insane, and it's my pride and joy, and I would be lying if I said it was just me, because sometimes I swear I don't know how I've gotten so lucky in this life, but again, I'm hoping I've done love philosophy and the people I've attracted, but I started it because I started writing again. I started writing these essays and telling the truth, and they were more bloggy when I started, because when I started, around 6 years ago or whatever it was, writing blogs, the intention was not as much about I want to write personal essays, or it was more like I want to fill my workshops and my retreats, and I was thinking I'll write these blogs that people really like, and then I started caring less, if people like it or not, But anyway, I started this blog, and my Facebook page started blowing up, and my public page, my writer page, and so I thought to myself, why don't I have this I have a lot of eyeballs on my website. Why don't I see if anyone that I know that's a great writer wants to write and give them this platform? And I did, and somehow it just started growing, and the quality of the stuff was incredible. And so a few years ago, I became friends with someone who's become one of my very best friends, and the amount of work she does for the site, without any acknowledgement, her name is Angela Giles Patel, is amazing. I mean, and she's very organized and structured and way more A-type, and I'm the opposite. And so
that's great.
I had no schedule, and she's like, Jen, it's making me crazy. And so she made everything really organized, and she was crazy. The submissions manager. It's just the two of us, and she I think she sleeps 1 hour a day. It's amazing, but she schedules everything. But the level of quality of writing on the site it blows my mind.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, it's every day there's something new, and when people come through the archives, the level of the authenticity, the things people share about themselves, the discussions of medical issues and body issues and abuse, and it's not all a drag. It's all there's so much celebration of life.
Oh yeah. And it's not. Yeah, and it's not all sometimes it's a gorgeous literary essay, and sometimes it's something that's written by a 15-year-old, or it's really again, it's that idea of on being human. I wanted stories that move us and that make us think and feel and question things, and I feel like we're doing that.
What does it mean to your slogan, I have done love? What does that mean to you, and why is that important to communicate to people?
That was from an essay I wrote a few years ago that I actually want to go back and work on at some point and put into a collection of essays or my book. But basically, it speaks to when I was at the restaurant, and I really thought, how so many times we think our life is going to look one way, and then we wake up and we're like, okay. But I mean, I was at NYU, and I was just scholar, and I thought, my life was going to look one way, and here I woke up and I'm 30, and I've been waitressing at the same job for 10 years, and I felt like a big fat loser. And so basically it was speaking to waking up one day and going, what have I done? How did I get here? What the fuck have I done?
Yeah.
I screwed up my life. What have I done? And so I guess the epiphany I had was, I said at the end of my life, when I ask one final, what have I done? Let my answer be, I have done love. And I thought about it. I thought that really is what's most important to me and how I attempt to live my life. And so, like, you know, yeah, I waitressed for a long time. It didn't change who I was. And, you know, I really wish I really got that then.
Yeah,
that my self-worth and who I was wasn't contingent upon how I was earning my paycheck.
Sure.
I felt so less than, and I do think in LA especially, it's really hard. It really is, you know, and I worked at it's closed down now, but a particularly, like, trendy, you know, everyone coming in was a wheeler and a dealer and an actor and making movies, and I felt invisible a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And now I look back and I think, I'm still Jen. I was Jen then, you know. Who cares if I was, you know, refilling iced teas or if I'm teaching yoga? I'm the same person, you know. And it's not like a new idea. I mean, it's kind of like I just worded it a bit different. But it's that
so much of that
much
of that world is centered on status and popularity, and you know what I mean? I mean, LA especially is a manifestation. You don't talk about manifestation of so much that's wrong with our culture and our species, and so really, much of it is tied to who you are and who you know and what you've achieved in the industry, quote unquote.
Yeah, and Andy, like, you know, once I really let go of acting, even though like I said in so many essays and till I'm blue in the face, I never really gave it a shot. I kind of just waited around for someone to come in and find me and go, there you are, you know. And,
right.
So funny. And so, but once I really was honest about it and I let it go, I felt such a freedom. When I started teaching and doing these works, I never felt like anyone liked me because of what I look like or how much I weigh or my body. And I did not feel that way waitressing or when I was, you know, trying to be an actress. It was all about my looks, and at least I felt that way.
Right.
And there was just it was such a freedom.
I wanted to. It's funny that you bring that up because it's a nice segue into a question I had for you. And since you're talking about this very thing about making this adjustment about your value as a person when you were a waitress, you were as valuable then as you are now, and that we shouldn't calculate the meaning of our existence based on, you know, our resume or who our famous friends are and that kind of thing. But having said that, I want to ask you about a couple of your famous friends because I'm not a star fucker either. I don't really. What's that? What'd you say?
Chuckle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I'm not concerned so much with celebrity, but from just from kind of watching your career and watching some of the things you've done, I'm really interested in some of the people that you know because they are interesting people, not because they're famous people. And one of the people is Patton Oswalt.
Oh, that's so funny. Patton, I was like, who's he going to ask me about? Patton, you know, I haven't talked to him in a long time, but he follows me on Twitter. Mm-hmm. But Patton was one of my regulars at the restaurant. That's how I know so many people. And back in the day, we used to be good friends. I remember we went and we saw, and I used to be friends with Sarah Silverman, and we went and saw one of her shows, and we had sushi. I mean, he was like my regular. I waited on him a couple of times a week, and he was lovely. But I haven't talked to him in a while. And
I was wondering if you were close or if you'd spoken to him since his wife passed.
No, he was just one of my regulars. I mean, I really did meet so many wonderful people working there. I mean, I met a ton of douchebags.
Yeah, I bet. Well, next one on my list is Hugh Jackman.
Oh, okay. No, that was my best birthday. My friend, one of my greatest friends, was in a play with him on Broadway, and so on my birthday last year, I went and we went out after and had a drink and we had tequila, and he made a "Don't Be an Asshole" video with me, and he maybe is the nicest person I've ever met.
I have to keep
really, what everyone says about him. He's lovely.
Those pictures of you. Those pictures. I was going to say those pictures of you two together. I have to try to keep Celeste away from those.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's not successful, but no, it's good. You know, it's good to hear that a person like that is cool. Right, because you know.
Oh my God! And he was like, I was like trying so hard to be. I was like, yeah. Oh, hey, you know when someone like really famous introduces himself, you're like, duh, you know who they are, but you're like, oh yeah, oh hey, Hugh. But and he was like, oh, what are you guys doing tomorrow? Do you want to come over? My friend's making Indian food or whatever. And I already had planned. Oh no, the next day I think was my real birthday, and I was like, oh my God, can I cancel my birthday dinner so we can go?
That's
He is like, I mean, he just emanates charisma and kindness, and it's wow. You see how some people become stars, not just actors, but stars.
Yeah, that's remarkable.
Such a nice guy, and just drinking tequila with him and having him make the "Don't Be an Asshole" video with me really.
That's so great. I want to ask you about those.
Oh my God.
Last famous friend, unless you have any in the closet that you want to tell us about, but Christy Turlington.
Oh, she's lovely. I think, I met her on Twitter. Somehow we both followed each other. And she's so nice, too. And we followed each other on Twitter, and then I think she reached out to me. She had her eye on me and reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to write something for her site. And I did, and then we became friends. And
wow.
She's wonderful. I mean, what she's doing in the world is so great. She has this organization called Every Mother Counts, and it's about maternal health. And she truly, I mean, she's one of the most beautiful women in the world, but on the inside, even more beautiful. And it makes her just like she's not even human.
And she's been a person who for a while now has been talking about, health and women's bodies and the modeling industry, and so many of and eating disorders, and good kinds of healthy living versus bad kinds of healthy living, or this obsession with thinness and youngness and all the things that are so disruptive to our actual long-term health. And so she's so much more than a former supermodel, right?
Oh my God, and she.
I love to see people who use the platform and use that access to really do something meaningful in the world. Yeah, that's spectacular.
Me too.
What was it like?
She's a really hands-on mom, and she's I remember. Actually, let's see. It was like right when I had the ectopic pregnancy. Maybe it was like a few days later. I saw her in New York, and we were talking about it. And I remember thinking like, "Oh, you must have had all these nannies." And she was like, "No. I didn't even have a nanny. I did everything." I thought, oh, wow. I mean, this is someone who is not poor, who's crazy famous and just really a real person.
Yeah. I read something recently about the Obamas, and, our show isn't political, and we kind of stay out of the fray with with politics.
Yeah.
But and lots of folks, including me, have very strong opinions and feelings about candidates and parties and the direction of the country. And skipping around all of that, I read something fascinating about him recently that said that of all the presidents in recent memory, he's the best parent. And they said that he's never missed a parent-teacher meeting. Like, this parent-teacher thing.
It makes me want to cry. I love him so much.
He's never missed one, even in the 2 times
I don't get political at all, but if anyone ever talks shit on my Facebook about him, I ban them.
Yeah.
I get upset like I was talking about my mom.
Yeah. I don't even understand, especially as a black man, right? But I can't, the kind of parents that they apparently are, and that every indicator has said, because, we've had Patty Davis on this show, we've talked to other folks, and a lot of people who are in politics completely ignore their children for most of their childhoods, right? Because they're too busy in politics and in living in that world, especially at that level. So to see a person who's in the White House and still goes to every parent-teacher meeting, that's a devotion that we don't see, but that, when you bring up Christy being a good parent, that's not the saucy stuff we want to hear about these figures, but it's the backbone, really, of our whole.
But it doesn't even surprise me, right? Like, of course.
That's amazing.
Of course, he goes to the parent-teacher meeting in between, slow jamming with Jimmy Fallon and
Yeah, slow jam with the news, right?
Giving a State of the Union address. Yeah.
And he has a wife who could step into the job right now, and I'd be happy with as well. I think she's phenomenal as well, Michelle.
What did you say?
I said, and his wife could step into his job, and I'd be just as happy, to be honest. I think Michelle is fabulous as well.
For sure.
So in our last few minutes here, I want to ask you about the Girl Power You Are Enough videos and the Don't Be an Asshole videos. You've mentioned those a few times.
Oh, okay.
We're going to link to all this stuff on the site, and I'm actually going to pull the audio from a few of those and fold those into this episode during the breaks and stuff. And so folks are going to get to hear some of that. But
cool.
and then we'll
Look at
direct
you.
them. Yeah, absolutely.
Fancy.
Just like you, I have
yeah,
a devoted team here helping me out. But tell us about those, the Girl Power You Are Enough.
I need to start doing more too. I kind of, I don't know, I fell off the videos a little bit, but
I mean, you kind of good excuse. You did make a human.
I know, it's true. I don't know. I felt so lazy during that pregnancy a lot because I had all these grand ideas. Like, I'm going to finish my book and do this. And I didn't. And people kept reminding me, Jen, you're making a human. So let yourself off the hook. But,
you were still doing workshops. You were in Ojai right up to the end almost. I mean, you were still pretty active.
Yeah, like a week before.
Yeah.
The Don't Be an Asshole started because my friend and I used to go up and, I'm such a ham. I used to go up and ask people on the sidewalk, what made you happy today? And I thought it was so inspiring to hear what they said. So there was this woman, and she was blind on the sidewalk, or mostly blind. And I went up and I asked her, what made you happy today? And she was like, just getting out of bed, or, and it was like amazing. I'm like, oh my God. I came back and sat down, and I asked her if she needed help crossing the street. And my friend said, so what did she say when you asked her? And I said, oh, well, the blind woman said, basically just getting out of bed and being able to, take the bus. And my friend said, yeah. And here we are, like, whining at the coffee bean, like, you don't have almond milk?
Yeah, right.
And she said, how does that make you feel? And I go, like an asshole. And so I said, don't be an asshole. And then I realized it kind of became my tagline. I certainly did not invent that phrase, although now I'm associated with it. So anytime anyone sees the word asshole, they send me, this made me think of you.
Yeah, isn't that lovely? Yeah.
Right. But I realized, so it's not about, calling someone else an asshole, although there's plenty out there. Mm-hmm. But it's about calling ourselves an asshole in a loving, joking way.
Sure.
Like I have some people that are really, like, self-righteous, and they're like, Jen, you're not an asshole. You must love yourself. No, it's really just like, okay, don't be an asshole and be an asshole to yourself. Don't be an asshole and forget that you're enough. Or like, really, when we start to, like, take things for granted, I always joke, like throwing a fit because you didn't get upgraded on the flight. Don't be an asshole. You're flying through the sky.
Right.
You can travel. You're wearing shoes.
Yeah, that was Louis C.K.'s thing. You're sitting in a chair in the sky.
In the sky,
Yeah.
I know. I just totally ripped him off.
No, it's wonderful. No, I do it all the time.
But I mean, it's really about holding yourself accountable to not be an asshole, like to be the best version of yourself, to be who you want to be in the world, but with a sense of humor. That's really, to me, one of the most important things, because anytime we do work on ourselves, or let's face it, anytime just in life, it's easy to take ourselves so seriously, and I think there's nothing more boring and terrible than that. So when you can have a sense of humor about yourself,
for fuck's sake. I think the yoga work is important there, right? Because to me, what yoga is helpful in doing, among other things, is getting us out of a mental condition where we are acting purely out of ego and not knowing it, right? When we act out of ego and don't have a calculating higher self that can negotiate that ego, sometimes we need to act out of ego. Sometimes if we're suffering abuse, sometimes if we're haven't found our creative voice, or like you said, the voice inside of us that can speak our truths and our experience, in those situations, that ego needs to be cultivated and protected and allowed to grow. But then in other cases, we need to kind of tell it to go sit in the corner and calm down a little bit.
Exactly.
Right? And I think yoga work, among other things, is something that helps develop that other faculty. But as a writer, you do as well, right? Because when we write, we kind of step back and forth between being in the middle of the thing that we're writing about, and then we step back into that up and back higher self that can kind of comment on that experience in a higher way.
Yeah. It's so similar. It's so similar. And that's one of the reasons that Lydia and I work so well together. It really is so similar.
Now, what about the Girl Power You Are Enough video?
Oh, yeah. So I lead these workshops, and I and they talk about transformation. They keep transforming, and they keep getting better and better and better. And different, and I really wanted to. I've always had the idea that I want to work with young women, always. And so I remember over a year ago, maybe now, I can't remember when, but I kept saying I want to work with young women, and I was leading a workshop, I think in Seattle, and there was a couple of teenagers there without their moms, and confused. How did you guys get here? Who are you? You know, well, my mom signed me up. My mom follows you, and it was great, and it was really inspiring having them in the room. And I thought, all right, so I want to work with young girls, and it's just happening. They're showing up. But I want to do something that's really just for them. And so I was talking to my friend Laura, her daughter Olivia at the time I think was 12. And I was like, would you come to this? And she's like, yeah, I'd love that. And so my friend said, oh, why don't we do something called Girl Power? I did a workshop called Girl Power, just yoga, she did. And I said, okay, but what's going to be like the catchphrase, the next part of it? And I said, how about you are enough? Because that is one of the major through lines of every workshop I do, everything, different language that comes up, but people don't feel like they're enough, whatever age they are. And so I thought, okay, you are enough. And the minute I said it, it seemed to resonate with everybody.
Wow.
Because too many people struggle with that belief. So I decided I'm going to do this. I'm going to create this movement and this thing. And I think I decided that in like April or May. So I did the first 2 workshops in September in New York and Princeton. And it was off the charts, amazing, best thing I've ever done. So rewarding, so inspiring. And it was tough. It was hard. It was harder to get the girls in the room because, it wasn't free. Even if it was free, in general, you had to have someone sign them up or pay for them, and it was not as easier to fill the room. But boy, was it! I wish I could find a way to just do it all the time. It was the best thing I've ever done.
And so the videos are, what are the videos? I mean, and again, I've seen a bunch of them, and we're going to play a few, but just for the audience, what's the content of these videos, roughly?
I'm not sure if you mean the videos I took of the girls in the workshop or interviewing them, or else just me talking. Because the videos of me talking were just I just started doing these videos every day where I talk about different topics, and people seem to really like them.
Yeah, it's almost like a daily video blog, right? They're sometimes 2, 3, 5 minutes long. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. And the author, we had the author Carrie Cohen on the show a few weeks ago, and she is an amazing person. She's a therapist, and her memoir Loose Girl, and then she's also written another book on this because she's a therapist looking at female sexuality, especially with young girls in this country, and the sort of lack of a developed narrative and safe places that we have for young women to explore their relationship with their bodies and their emerging sexuality. And one of the things that she said, and she didn't quite say it this way, but just to translate it into what you just said, that there's a chasm. It's not about being sexually active or not. It's not about promiscuity or not. There's a chasm between a young woman who steps into her sexual self as a young person, believing already that she is enough as she is, apart from that activity, and a young woman who engages in her sexuality believing she's not enough and will be made complete from the attention of men in this particular case. And she's really trying to push that other narrative of if we can get young girls and get a culture to surround them that teaches them this message: you are enough as you are, and your body is yours, and how you explore it is your choice, and who you share it with or not and when is your choice. And then if we get everyone else on that same page, that's the narrative and that's the discussion. And so I love to hear about these kinds of things, because when I
would love to hear that podcast and read her book.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She is spectacular, and we'll send you a link to that stuff because she's really something else.
Sounds right up my alley. I love. In the last Girl Power, I did I was going to New York. I was a guest speaker at Canyon Ranch, and so I did a workshop in New York in March, and I decided I was going to be there a little longer, so I thought, let me add one more. And usually I don't like to do too many; it's very exhausting. And one of the reasons it was even more exhausting back in the day was because I had to struggle so much to hear. I mean, truly, the amount of fatigue that I would feel.
Oh, I can imagine.
Was beyond.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I decided, why don't I do it as a Girl Power one? And this time I opened it up to all ages. But I said, if you're under 16, you have to come with a guardian. And it was really, really, really cool because I had like literally some 10-year-olds and women up into their, I want to say maybe 50s was the oldest, 55 or something. And it was the coolest thing. And I kind of, the younger girls talked the most, and we all just learned so much from them. But it was so wonderful. I really love working with the young girls. And
that is great. So last two questions for you. I'm glad you're doing that, and I'm glad it's so successful. Two more questions, and we'll let you go. One is, just to back up to the "Don't Be an Asshole" videos. You said you made one with Hugh. What are those like? I mean, are you just picking different ways that people are assholes in their daily life and trying to expose that and say, hey, don't do that? I mean, are they meditations on all of the ways people can be assholes to each other?
Yeah. But they're always about myself. Like,
sure.
Like with him, it was joking. We were like drinking tequila, and I really just wanted to, get
of course.
but like, I'm trying to think. Some of them I did like. I've been looking, Facebook has this thing, it's like your memories from 1 year ago, and I see all my old ones, and I was looking at one the other day that, about like your worth. Don't be an asshole and forget your worth. And I take lessons that I'm dealing with in my own life, and I make it about me,
That's so great.
I can only talk about make it a personal and the universal thing. Like, don't be an asshole and forget your own worth, and I'll tell my story about what happened, and, just reminders of ways that I catch myself being an asshole to myself.
I posted something on Facebook.
But it's never like...
Yeah, it's never like telling other people. Yeah.
It's never like, don't be an asshole like that guy over there. And like, no, I'm not there to shame anyone.
I posted something on Facebook the other day that was exactly like that. It was, don't be an asshole like that guy over there. And I don't even remember what it was. And a friend of mine came on. Through social media, I've been able to meet just some wonderful people through the work I'm doing as well, and Celeste, and people like yourself.
Sure.
And a guy named Timothy Ferris is a friend of mine, and Tim Ferriss worked with Carl Sagan on the Voyager project, and is a professor emeritus at Berkeley, and is considered the most important science writer of the 20th century. I mean, he's a really big deal. And he came on the page, and he didn't agree with what I had said, right? And he kind of had this thing. Are you sure you're talking about that guy over there? And I thought about it for a second, and I wrote him back, and I said, Timothy, you should know at this point that anytime I'm talking about that guy over there, I'm talking about myself. You know what I mean? And then he cracked up, and he said, yeah, okay, that's what I thought. I said, yeah, because that's what it is, right? Thank you so much for being with us.
I'm really, I'm a big fan of us, calling ourselves out. I'm not talking about being too hard on yourself, but really like catching yourself when you're like, wow, I was really kind of an asshole today.
If we're honest with ourselves, we can also be patient and forgiving with ourselves. I think we can extend that to ourselves as well, but we got to be honest first. Last question I have for you. What was it like going to, into the presence of the Big O with Cheryl Strayed to the Oprah Super Soul?
I wanted to meet her so bad. I didn't get to meet, Cheryl I met. Cheryl's so lovely, and I adore her. She's just really walks the talk. And so generous, but
we hope to have her on the show in the coming months here. We were trying to work that out and get our schedules together, but she is just fantastic.
Yeah, she's so busy, but hopefully she'll make that happen. Being another Portland, what do people in Portland call each other? Portlandians.
I guess the show is Portlandians. Yeah. Hipster douchebags is what we call each other, but that's a different story.
Yeah, that's funny. It was so inspiring. Cheryl's talk was wonderful about, I can't remember, the whole speech, but it was really about allowing yourself to be mediocre, I think, if I'm butchering what she was saying, but really not having to just doing the work. And then Oprah was so inspiring too, and Kerry Washington, but Oprah really talked about so many things, but one of the things that struck me was how she said she starts every day with prayer. And Kerry Washington said the same thing, and that struck me. Not necessarily religious prayer, whatever it meant for them, but I really was like, wow, I gotta start like my day like that, getting really quiet and really connecting, and in a place of prayer, and that can be yoga or meditation or whatever.
This is another act of manifesting, and C.S. Lewis said it back in the day. I mean, he was a Christian, but he said he doesn't pray because it changes God. He prays because it changes him. It's a way of
I love that.
speaking
I love that.
An intention into the universe, and more important, listening after you speak that intention to the universe.
I love that. Yes.
That's profound. And Oprah gets a lot of shit from a lot of people, and I give her a hard time for how kind she's been to Scientologists over the years. That bothers me. But I'll tell you this: I've heard, as I watched her career and watched the things she's done and devoted herself to, and when I hear stories, I've never met her, but I know a few people who have, who worked on a TV crew or something when she came to do an interview, and they said that every one of them said the same thing, that she came into the room, she introduced herself to everybody there, every grip, every camera person, every light person, every cue card holder, talked to people by first name, looked them in the eye, and spent time getting to know everybody and really connecting. And they felt genuinely, like that they had never experienced that with somebody else, especially of that caliber, Prince, who just died, and I love Prince to death. All the stuff about him was, when Prince comes in the room, don't look him in the eye, right, and stuff like that. And so I've heard that she has an entirely different vibe, and is really just an inspiring, loving presence. And then when you hear her backstory,
yeah, and I just thought, you know what, I really, it's my dream to, I would have loved at some point to be up there, and I want to give a TED Talk, and there's so many things I want to do, and I was really inspired being in the audience, like, yeah, you know what, I can do this, yes!
Yeah.
But I thought, what's so cool about manifesting is, I thought, I'm sitting there and go, look at me, I mean, I may not be on stage, but here I am in the audience,
right.
And I'm pretty close, like, every little step we get, I'm like, look, this is really me. Here I am.
I think that's amazing, and I think you're right around the corner from doing that. I really think that this next year is going to be where that stuff starts happening for you. I mean, the work with Lydia.
I'm really working on trust. It's scary right now. I'm not working all summer, and I'm not a millionaire. I live really like hand to mouth, and
sure.
I'm so grateful. And I don't have to wait tables anymore. But it's still like I don't have passive income yet. I mean, you'd think with my website being as popular as it is, but I still I don't have any ads on it. I'm I just get the essays out there. I'm not monetizing and.
Yeah, people would be amazed if they knew how little money was in the work of transformation, right?
Totally, and
well, where's the book at?
Gosh, my agent's gonna listen to this and be like, "Where is it?" I don't know, and that's why I've been so stuck with. Is it discipline? Is it laziness? Is it just because I'm so busy? So and now, of course, I'm beating myself up because I'm like, why didn't I do this before? Like everyone warned me, because now with the newborn, are you kidding? So just really having trust that it's everything's going to happen in the time that it's going to happen, and it's going to be okay. Those are my favorite words, right? It's going to be okay. I have to chant that to myself a lot.
You won't have as you know, you won't have a newborn forever, and I don't know you personally, but I can relate to what you're saying. But writing is a funny thing, and the muses are funny. And when you have a career and you have a brand and you have an agent and you need to pay the bills, I understand all those pressures. But what I trust in is that when the book comes out of you, it will be the book that was supposed to be written, and maybe at that point you'll understand.
I do too. I do too.
And you'll say at that point you'll say, "Thank God I didn't try to write this before, because I wouldn't have been able to say what I needed to say here."
I do, and now with the baby, and I've lots of other things to say, and talk about, but just trust too, just in general, of I think it's so easy to, I have dealt so much with depression and anxiety, and to get anxiety when we think about the future, instead of staying present, when I start to panic about what's going to happen in the future, and oh my God, and how are we going to stay in this apartment, and what,
right.
To still keep staying present and just have trust, and how is everything going to work out? How am I going to keep traveling? Am I going to, and I talk myself into this rabbit hole of fear.
I think, people would probably be comforted and also disheartened to realize that, no matter where you climb on this ladder of quote unquote success, those feelings are still there.
I think it's true.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to hear the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And then also to give over to trust. It doesn't mean that, you just sit on your ass and never do any work, but to really just trust.
Realize what you have control over and how much you don't.
Yes. And how much we don't is so vast. I think one of the greatest myths of being a person is that we have any control.
Yeah.
You know, I think we kid ourselves so much, but really just trusting that it's going to be okay, and that I'm on the right path and
that is great.
doing something right.
Thank you for taking this time with us, all this time away from little Charlie there. Your mom knows what she's doing apparently, because I haven't heard a peep out of the guy.
My mom's a baby whisperer, yeah. And my in-laws are here from London, and so I have a baby whisperer room. But that's funny. I can't believe I was pumping.
No, that was great, yeah. I thought that was great. We said early on it was family friendly, so I didn't mean to shame you there. I was just making sure it wasn't something on our end.
No, totally had this strapless bra. It looks like some weird S&M thing. I had never seen one. I had never seen it before. And I was like, are you kidding me? This is a breast pump?
A Game of Thrones kind of breast pump.
Yes, because you have this strapless bra, and your nipple is hooked in, and it's wild. But that's my life right now.
Looks like something you'd buy at a Spartacus kind of store, not for actually helping a child.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to add at the end here, now that I just took us out on a low note? Do you want to try to salvage the thing? Anything we didn't say?
I mean, it's crazy because you hear all these things, but until you experience it, you're like, oh, that's why everyone says this. But I didn't sleep at all. I think I had an hour of sleep, so the minute we hang up, I'm going to go, what did I even say?
Right, exactly.
Did I sound like an idiot? I have no idea what I said. Did I make sense?
Oh, my God, you did great. Yeah, it was wonderful. The audience is going to love it, and we're going to put all of your contact info, your personal page and the manifestation stuff on our site so folks know how to get a hold of it and read what's going on. And
it was really lovely talking to you, and you and your wife are both just beautiful people, and I love Portland, and Lydia and I will definitely, we did our retreat there end of March, and we'll do it again in 2017, and we have our next one is over Labor Day weekend in California, in Ojai, and we actually just had a few spots opening, so if anyone's listening, Lydia Yuknovich is my personal hero, and just a remarkable person. So we're doing that, and that's my first, foray back into work. That's my first, I think it's the first weekend of September, the first time I'll go back to the real world of working, and,
something else. Her TED Talk is approaching 1 million views as we speak. So
I know. It's just, that misfit.
Yeah, exactly.
She's wonderful.
Well, you're doing the good work of transformation. I can tell you, this is the first time we've ever spoken, but I've followed your work for a while, and I've spoken to, over the past year and a half, maybe 20 or 30 people personally whose lives have been forever changed by you and your work. And I almost said,
oh my God, that's so cool to hear.
I almost said your ministry, because it feels like that, right? A kind of a secular ministry.
Oh my God, I love it.
So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for bringing that wonderful boy into this world, and we can't wait to see what's on the horizon for you.
Yeah, maybe I'll bring him when I come to Portland.
Oh,
whenever we do it.
That would be the best.
Well, Andy, thank you.
Jen Pastiloff, we really enjoyed having you on the show. You've been listening on the Block Radio, folks. Our guest has been Jen Pastiloff. Get on over to her site and to the manifestation to see what's going on there, because it's really some profound and beautiful work. Thank you for being
here. Yes, and your wife has an essay on there. That's great.
She does, and she just wrote another one on teeth and class in America, and shaming people for that have poor teeth for various reasons. That blew my mind, and she's been talking about submitting it to you.
You're saying teeth?
Yeah, just an essay on teeth and class in America.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's a really, really moving piece about her own experience growing up.
Where is it?
Where's the piece?
Yeah.
She just finished it and read it recently at a reading here in town, so she hasn't submitted it yet, but I was telling her to submit it to you. Okay.
Yeah, I would love to read that. I have major teeth issues, so I'd love to read that.
Oh, I'll tell her. That's great.
I had a tooth broke about 20 years ago, and it had to have it pulled, and who does that? I have a missing just hole in my head. Who does that?
Yeah.
And 20 years later, I still have and I have all these fears around teeth. I have nightmares where my teeth fall out. I just have all this teeth dentist phobia. So
yeah, there's not only that, but then there's all this judgment in the culture. I mean, people with chipped or missing teeth, it's you're a crackhead, you're poor, you don't take care of yourself, you know what I mean? There's a lot of judgment that comes from people with teeth issues that is pretty harsh
totally
out of our culture. And so she's addressing all of that as well. And you and your site were such an inspiration for her to do that kind of work. And so
I'm so happy to hear that.
The reverberation.
It's an honor to publish the people that we do. It truly is. I don't I don't say that to blow smoke up anyone's ass. Mm-mm. It is such an honor, and I don't take it for granted at all. So thank you.
Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Yeah.
And I know you're in kind of a sleepless haze, but you were fantastic, and the audience is going to love it.
Well, I'm sort of scared, when you post something. I'm like, oh my God, what do I say?
We'll send it to you, and you'll be able to listen to it. If anything sounds too bizarre, let me know, and we'll cut it out. we have that ability. I always say bizarre things, and then I go, we'll cut this out and post, and then I forget. It's kind of a running joke on the show.
Right.
But you were fantastic. No, we really appreciate it.
Thank
you so
Thanks,
much.
Andy.
Have a good rest of your day, all right?
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
You've been listening to On the Block Radio, folks. Our guest has been Jen Pastiloff, and we had a wide-ranging and really interesting conversation with her. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you on the other side.
You've been listening to On the Block Radio with Andrew Gurovich. The show is produced in Portland, Oregon by Michael DiNapoli at MD Productions. Theme music by Moving the Mountain. Closing music by Jonathan Oak. Look us up on the web at ontheblockradio.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Don't forget to tune in next week for a brand new episode. Previous episodes can be found on our website. Thanks for listening.
Oh, you're beautiful kitty kitties. Oh, look at you out there. Beauty like a bolt of light in a darkened hallway. New minds looking at this world, at our lives, with the perspective of apocalypse children. Standing dusty in the barren highways, standing broken before the fathers who were meant to make us whole, but who only lied to us about what it meant to be a man, about what it meant to be a woman, about what it meant to be a child.